Hello, good afternoon, good morning to those from the US and a good afternoon to those in the UK. Welcome to the Rising Network Masterclass, How to Stand Out in a Tough Job Market. Today we've got the guest speakers, Majuba Bianchi, CEO of 3T Institute, and Sarah Basha, Senior Consultant at Grant Thornton, joining us from the US. My name's Rosa dos Santos, and I have a business called Exact Sourcing, and I'm in recruitment here locally in the Cambridgeshire, East of England area, helping people build their teams or replacing staff and their talent. So it's lovely to welcome you all today, particularly on this very important topic. So the agenda for today, after the welcome, we are going to listen to Sarah and to Majuba talk with question and answers after each topic. And then we'll be aiming to close off at the end of the hour at 4 o'clock GMT time and 12 o'clock in the US. So today you're joining us to learn a little bit more about how to stand out in the current climate and job market. And you'll be learning a little bit of strategies and techniques on how to stand out in the current market, how to make yourself a little bit different. How do you create the perfect CV? I'm guessing you've got one, and you're wanting a few techniques and some advice on how to really stand out. And what's really the correct information to have on that CV to help you sort of stand out and above the crowd and ready to get that job or at least interview. A very important thing to really think about is how do you identify your niche, and that's something that Sarah and Majuba will be covering today. And then lastly, the thing that you'll learn is how to present yourself to your network through LinkedIn, and a very important tool as we're all either sitting at home or remotely as we connect today. We'll be learning some useful tips on how to master that a little bit, a bit more. So a little bit on housekeeping today. This online event is being recorded. Please put your phones on silent, and if you mute your microphone, you should be able to see on the bottom of your screen, you'll be able to mute yourself during the online event, except during the breakouts and question and answer time. Question and answer time will take place after the talk today, and you'll be able to ask your questions. So please make a note as you're going along, because I'm sure there'll be lots of things that you want to maybe think about. Type your question into the chat box at the bottom. There's a place, a chat box, and then one of us will read out the question. Select the raise hand and then wait until someone asks and selects you, please. And at this point, when you're asked or selected, just unmute your microphone and feel free to ask your question. And if you're a little bit shy or your audio is not working, that's okay. We'll ask it for you if you just make a note there. That's super. So a little bit about the Rising Network and about us, and the purpose of the Rising Network is we use the power of community to really empower women to realize their true potential and then to achieve that balance and happiness in their life. And the vision is to be recognized as a global community that empowers women to become change makers. And obviously with the pandemic that's around, more and more of us are connecting on platforms like this, and it's wonderful to be sharing in a safe space. So a very warm welcome to you all. So how was the Rising Network founded? Well, it was founded by Lily Cheng, the founder. In 2012, she had a job, she was in a relationship, and she wasn't happy. She'd got to a crossroads in her life, and she was starting to ask questions. And she was looking for a support network, somewhere that she could improve her well-being by, sort of gaining better work-life balance and managing her stress, and also to be able to develop skills and obtain tools and techniques to reconnect with herself and purpose and passions and to reach her full potential. And at that point, there wasn't really anything like this. And so she created a local network here in Cambridge, which she officially launched in January 2013, and which we've had now the privilege to be able to be part of this. So if it's your first time coming, hopefully you'll enjoy today and feel that connection with others. Now, usually we'd meet face-to-face, but unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we're doing this online, but it's amazing we can still have access to platforms like this. So how can the Rising Network help you? Well, a big thing is building your self-confidence. You'll be able to learn to cultivate that inner confidence in a welcoming and supportive environment, which we at the Rising Network here are very supportive. Creating meaningful relationships, so expanding your network and creating those professional and perfect, yes, but personal relationships that last. And I've done so over the years that I've been a member and part of the team. There's unlimited networking events and courses. Like today, you'll be on the masterclass for how to stand out in a tough job market. And I'll share a little bit later other events that are upcoming, but you'll have, you've got access to unlimited network and events such as these to be able to connect with others and learn. You'll be able to improve your well-being and gain balance by learning new strategies and techniques to improve well-being and to maintain that work-life balance. I don't know about you, but more and more as we're working from home, and where does the line cross? So things like this is really key, places like this. Getting expert advice, accessing advice and strategies and tools from expert speakers and members in the network, which will help you develop your leadership skills and overcome challenges, to be able to learn more about different areas. And then accessing mentors and female role models and peer-to-peer support. There is no better way to do that than here at the Rising Network. So I'll share a little bit more about you with this. So a little bit about the chapters that we have. So as I mentioned, I'm based here in Cambridge, and I'm here with fellow other Cambridge chapter leads. And actually we have chapters in the US, and we have chapters at Southeast England, in Cambridge, London, and they're emerging chapters evolving all the time. So if you join this local community, you can connect and inspire other and empower women, which is something that the chapter really encourages, and where you can collaborate with women from all walks of life and work with fellow chapter leads and Rising Network, or you can just partake in some of the activities. But these are some of the wonderful people on the various chapters that are with us today to create, that enable us to create something really unique. So the events, face-to-face events, traditionally is what this chapter was, the Rising Network was all about. And of course, now with online networking and learning is something that we're doing all the time. So you'll see some photos here of some of the events that have taken place over the years. Networking and learning, mentoring circles, master classes, so learning from particular experts in their fields, interactive workshops, women rising in STEM, webinars and panel discussions, and the Rising Festival, which is an annual event that takes place every year celebrating International Women's Day. And there's so much more to get from this. So a glass of wine or a cup of coffee, that's probably about the cost of joining the membership if you're thinking about it and it's your first time with us. It's free to attend, and the member discounted events, online events, sessions and courses, and actually any of the courses you can go back on and gain access to on-demand video learning. You can build your network, develop those leadership skills, and then access mentoring and peer-to-peer support, and then pick up tools to achieve that balance and well-being. And of course, have fun in a supportive learning environment, as hopefully we'll have today. And of course, you'll be part of a network of women who want to see you succeed. So just have a look at the risingnetwork.com, where you'll find out some more information. And it's really easy to do to join us. But any questions, feel free to reach out to one of us on here. Right, so now we'll hand you over to Majuba Bianchi, CEO of 3T Institute, and Sarah Basha, from a senior consultant from Grant Thornton, who are speaking to us from the US. It's our great pleasure to welcome you both.
Thank you. Super excited to be here and talk about our amazing topic here. Rosa, thank you for that introduction. Yes, today, Sara, Basha, and myself are bringing you a topic that a lot of us are interested in learning about, especially because of COVID. So how to stand out in a tough job market. My goal today is really to keep this interactive. And as we're going through these topics, we are going to have an opportunity to pause, reflect, and from you to take your questions. So the first part of it will be myself, and then Sara will take on the rest of the presentation with Rosa concluding with some final words. So how do you stand out in the job market? One of the things that I always say is, what is your niche, right? Rosa covered some of these topics that we'll be addressing. Creating that perfect resume, what does that really look like? And Sara's going to take us in terms of the online presence. And what does that really mean? Because really, we have gone virtual. In-person events are mostly canceled, and now everything is online, which means through a click, they can find out who you are and what you do. So niche, right? Are you looking in the right place? I love these examples of individuals who have created massive success, but also impact in society. If you look at Walt Disney, he didn't start out with this vision of Disney World. He, in World War I, used to actually drive an ambulance. He worked in areas where he was actually judged that he didn't have creativity. And you can tell that people actually really don't know who you are, and that your niche is really very close to your heart. And finding that takes a few losses. It takes a few rejections. It takes an opportunity for someone to tell you, you're not a good fit. And then you pause for a moment and you say, well, what is my fit? Right. And with Disney, he followed his passion. There was something in him that drove him. And it took, a moment of reflection, I'm sure, for him to use his imagination. And look at Disney World today. It is in Japan and Paris, in 2 states, California and Florida. It is a multi-billion-dollar business. And imagine someone telling Walt Disney, you don't have, or you lack imagination. Another example I like to give you, right? The trial and error in finding your niche. And so even for me, I started out going to college for government and international relations, thinking I was going to work for the UN. And life threw me, curveballs, as they say it here in the US, maybe in the UK as well. But it was through those curveballs that it gave me moments of reflection. Who is Majuba? What does she like to do? What is inherent to who she is as a human being, and her passion to make a difference? And we'll talk more about that. But here's another example of George Clooney, who is a famous actor, but he didn't always start that way. He started in having a job as a salesman. Can you believe him? Like the cutest guy, like knocking at your door. I would buy anything from George Clooney. But he then went on to playing baseball, but he didn't make the cut. He was rejected. And then he got into Hollywood, and that's where he found his passion. And today he's known internationally as one of the most amazing actors. And not only that, but through his acting, he was able to do a lot of humanitarian work. I mean, think back that, he became an actor, was able to really become independent financially, and then went on to doing a lot of different work. So part of finding that niche, the biggest thing I always say is rejection. If someone rejects you, take it in terms of, okay, let me step back for a moment and reflect on, where am I supposed to be? Maybe I wasn't really in the right place. Maybe I wasn't looking in the right jobs. And it's going to start with also creating your wish list. Make a wish. Ask yourself these questions. So here's some questions that I put together that I think is so helpful in kind of understanding who you are, your drive. A lot of us have technical skills and soft skills that we kind of, put under the cover or under the pillow, and we're like, oh yeah, I'm okay at it. But that's where you want to excel. And maybe it's time to take those out. Maybe it's time to really take off the dust on some of the things that really drives your passion. It can be art. How can you, if you're into art, well, how can you turn that maybe into a business opportunity, or making an impact within your organization? So I always, ask the individuals that I work with, I say, if you can think of a dream job, what would it be and why? And for me, my dream job wasn't necessarily a particular position. It was I always wanted to give back to the community, give back to humanity. And I wanted to make people feel good. And I needed a job that did that for me. And if I went to jobs where did things that really didn't meet those goals, I was generally never happy. It was like, oh, it's Monday again, and that feeling. And so if you're feeling that, oh, it's Monday again, maybe ask yourself, where do you want to be and why? What are some soft skills that you have? Now it's really focusing internally into who you are. What are your soft skills? What are your technical skills that you're always being complimented on? Is it your ability to communicate? Or do you have great interpersonal skills? Are you able to resolve conflict with ease? What are some of those inherent skills that you have that you've been complimented on? Look there for a moment. What about technical skills? Do people always come to you to edit documents? Do they come to you for advice, maybe on how to start a computer or how to defragment a computer, or coding or development, resume building, interview coaching? Do people come to you for certain sets of technical skills? And so that's a moment, again, a moment of reflection for you. And, the other aspect of it is that not all of us like to be in the spotlight. And that's something else you want to figure out. Do I like to be at the forefront leader, or do I like to be a servant leader, serving from the back of the team, but making sure that the team still sees the vision and mission? Who are you from a leadership perspective? Leadership, we always assume that the leader is in the front, but that is actually not true. You can lead from the back of the team, or backwards as well. And then, you will also want to think about, I know I have some inherent soft skills and technical skills that, we just talked about, but maybe there are areas that you want to improve because you see that there's a market out there. You see that it's going to make your niche a little stronger. What is that? What knowledge can you gain? What networks can you join? What new courses can you obtain, or finding a mentor that's going to help you really hone in on that niche? And that's the time of, you've done the discovery. Now find, the support to ensure that you're moving forward. The other part of finding yourself, finding your niche, is projecting forward. Where do you see yourself in the next 3 years? Initially, I used to say the next 5 years, and then someone said 5 years is a long time, Ajuba. I don't even know what I'm going to do tomorrow. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's a good point. Let's think about every 3 years. And I noticed that in my own life, I was like, every 3 years, I kind of pivot a little bit, and, I change things around. So where do you see yourself in the next 3 years? Doing the same thing you're doing today? Do you love what you're doing today? Do you dread Mondays? Are you someone who's still trying to find their path in their life? How do you get to that path? And so a lot of getting to that end result means doing the hard work up front and asking yourself these questions. And so that's your Make-A-Wish. I would love to pause here for a moment and see if you have any questions, comments, or maybe even a question related to where you are. And if you want support in terms of clarity, I would be more than happy to support you with that and answer your questions. So like Rosa said, please raise your hand. I'm also going to, and then I can call on you. So I'll monitor the participants or the chat, and you can ask your questions. If not, no worries. I do have another topic that we can talk about, and then maybe answer questions at the end of that topic. Oh, I see the chat box lighting up. Awesome. So the questions from Brett, it says, what about those who don't get feedback on what they may be good at? If you're not getting feedback on what you're good at, then it is important for you to make a list of what you think you're good at, right? It's important for that internal reflection to happen. But I'm sure you've received compliments. I'm sure that someone has said, hey, Brett, you're awesome at this. The way you edit, for example, just give an example, the way you edit this document and just knowing where every comma goes, and I give you something that's draft 1 and you turn it around, it's a draft 5. What is it that people have complimented you on? Because a compliment is a feedback as well. So think back to those, but then it's also going back and finding the child within you as well. And that is the reflection of the child within us. And what I mean by that is, as children, we're not bound by a whole lot of things in our society and what others think. And we say, oh, you know what, I want to become a lawyer. I mean, I remember saying that. Why did I say that? Why did I think that I would make a lawyer? What are some of those characteristics? And are those characteristics inherent to who I am? So then you're kind of giving yourself that feedback, and reflecting and making a list. So make a list for yourself of things that you know you're great at. And has anyone complimented you on those? I have another question. It says, Zoe says, I find thinking of my niche really hard. What techniques do you use to find your niche? I think your niche is not going to be, to get to that, I would say you have to start from the bird's eye view. For me, inherently, I call myself a humanitarian. Now, that's not a niche, right? And then I call myself a humanitarian, but then I also say that I want to make more than 6 figures a year. Now, we know that if you're a nonprofit, that's not always true. For me, it was like, no, I need to make a certain salary amount to support the lifestyle I like to live, and then concurrently help society. So for me, what that resonated into was leaving Booz Allen Hamilton as a financial analyst, knowing that, again, humanitarian was in the back of my mind. And I ended up finding a job, and I had to do a moment of discovery. I went and received my master's degree. So again, in project management, because there's someone in project management that worked on the humanitarian field that actually did make 6 figures. And I'm like, oh, this is great, right? So again, it's like you start with that larger picture and you go in you go in and in and in. So finally, what ended up happening, I received my MBA in IT project management. I was given an opportunity to work with the Department of Veterans Affairs on their IT projects so that veterans waiting in line for healthcare would get their opportunity to actually receive healthcare and would not die waiting to be seen by a doctor. So, whoa, like that job just made me so happy. I was giving back in a way where the veteran didn't even know my name, but I was working on these amazing projects where I felt like, wow, I'm actually giving back to society and making the amount of salary I was making. So start with the bird's eye view and say, who are you? What do you like to do? Are you someone who likes to solve puzzles? Are you someone who likes to dig through things? Are you into mystery? Are you, who are you, the essence of you? And then get in a little deeper. Awesome. Great questions. Let me go ahead and get to the next part, the fun part. Well, I think the first part was fun too. Do you guys agree? All right. So the perfect CV, or here in the US, we call it a resume. I think of a resume as the first impression. It's that smile that a recruiter sees. It's the great outfit that the recruiter sees, and the cute shoes that maybe you have on, or the suit or the tie. That's what your resume is. Would you want your tie to be dirty or your shoes to have mud on them if you went on a job interview? No. And so you want to think of your resume as that, or your CV as that first impression. And is it going to guarantee you a job? No, but it's going to allow someone to look at it and be like, oh, this is nicely formatted. And did you know that recruiters mostly spend about 3 to 5 seconds on a resume? So essentially, if it looks too convoluted, if you have too many pictures and too many, graphics and underlines, well, they may not like that. And then they're like, oh, on to the next one. But essentially what your resume needs to say is your years of experience, your knowledge, your capabilities, some of the amazing work that you've done, like show off. What are some of those high dollar projects you've worked on? For me, one of the ones that I put on is I worked on a $3 million project, managed a team of 8, and took the project from failing to success. Whoa, if a recruiter were to see that, they're going to be like, I want Majiba on my team. And so is your CV saying that? Or is it just chronology, is it going in the order of, I did this, I did this, I did this? How are you impressing the job market? The world's different. COVID today has changed people's attention span. People don't like to be on computers as much. And they're not going to waste their time looking at a CV that isn't giving them the information they need. So what information should you have? Let's take a look at that. All right. The format that I like is, and the one that I use and create for my clients that come to me, is the moment I look at it, I'm like, okay. And sometimes I do change this around a bit, because again, if you're trying to go to a different job market, if you're trying to highlight something within you because you have targeted a job, then we may have to do things a little different. We'll have to become a little creative. But generally, you want to start with your most recent job and you want to go down. You want your resume to be no more than 2 pages long. I think any longer than that, we know that no one's going to go to page 3 or 4. So essentially, you're going to have a summary paragraph, your education goes next, and then your career highlights, then your experience. And that summary, that has to kick butt, because that summary has to say, I did this, and you want to just show off. Just show off. It's okay. They'll like it. And especially if you have done great things, don't be shy about it. You want to get that job. You want to make more money, and you want to stand out. And know that the recruiter probably has 20 resumes in front of them. What is going to get them to stop at your resume and spend 10 seconds on versus 3 to 5? Some of the things that you want to avoid on a resume is lots of caps, bolding, underlining. You don't want to use lots of quotes or external links that someone's going to go to. People put their LinkedIn link, maybe that's a good thing, but does someone really have time to click on your LinkedIn if they have the resume in front of them? Think about yourself. You're busy, you're working, you need to find a candidate. Are you going to, unless if you've said, yes, this is my candidate, most recruiters have probably moved on already to the next CV that looks close. And Rosa can probably tell us more about that. Don't use graphics. I know that in Europe and a lot of other countries, people do add their pictures. In the US, we don't. We don't add our pictures because of potential discrimination. So I'm not sure what the practices are in the UK. What I've seen is that people sometimes do add it, but then I don't know if that's the norm. If it's not the norm, don't put your picture. You don't have to. And one of the things that I also want to point out is try not to send your resume in a Word format. Send it in PDF, because then maybe if you've created some notes, right, you don't want someone to see that. And the format is going to stay intact. So it's going to look like a beautiful document. The person's going to open it up, and generally every laptop has a PDF reader, and and they can just open it up and take a look at it. So these are my, we can go in much more details, and maybe I'll take some questions from all of you guys in terms of resume format. So, or CV format, what questions can I help answer for you? Or maybe if you're thinking about executive summary, I haven't really heard of that. That's big here. We do all resumes I create must have an executive summary, because the trend of having a cover page or a cover letter has actually, it's not so prominent in anymore. So that summary kind of replaces that cover letter. All right, I see some questions coming through. Zoe says, does the exec summary appear ahead of work experience? Yes, it does. Your executive summary is the first paragraph. It should be about no more than 4 to 5 lines. Like, you don't want it to take any more than that, 1/3 of the page. So just 3 to 4 lines, who you are. You want to start with the years of experience. Zoe's an expert in IT project management with 20 years of experience managing health IT projects and, and you can go on. Annie says, I have heard that some automatic CV readers are not effective reading a CV, and so it's better to send a CV as a Word document. I actually haven't heard of that. So I can't really comment on it. I know, and that brings me to another point, is that a lot of people do put keywords in their resumes. If you like those keywords, you can always put them at the bottom, all the way at the end of the resume. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Rosa can shed some light on that. I have not heard of that, to be honest, but great question. What else could I help answer? I don't know, Rosa, if you wanted to address that at all.
Yeah, sure. Hi, Anne. So that's an interesting one. I've heard here in the UK, Majuba, that on some of the platforms when you upload, I know certainly you upload some information, particularly there's a job board people use at the moment, it's called Indeed. They upload the information. When we get it on our side, it doesn't, it only gives a little bit of information in terms of it completely strips the CV back. So I agree with you, keeping a clean line, executive summary, and then starting with your most recent work history, working, for the most recent, working backwards is clear. Yeah, I actually prefer it in Word, but it depends on who receives it, whether it's Word or PDF in terms of that. And I know if people have got graphics on a PDF, it tends to stay as it is. But it really does depend. I'm not too sure about some of the altering of automatic CV readers. So that's an interesting point. I'll look into that.
Yeah. So what I'll say, when you do, just to add to what Rosa said, is you can absolutely upload your resume in Word, but you want to scrub through it. Do you have any comments there that you want to remove? Remove those before you send it. What about saving the file name properly? First name, last name, resume updated with the date that you updated it. A lot of individuals just have just the file name isn't even correct, so when someone's saving it, they don't have to put your name in there. Save the recruiter time. So yes, absolutely, go ahead and upload it in Word format if that's what you feel most comfortable with, but just ensure that it's a very clean looking Word document and things are not all over the place. And even with Word, as long as you're saving the information, things should not move around. But I'll tell you, the reason I'm recommending PDF is because not everyone is on Windows 10 of Word. Some are on Windows 7. So they can't do the conversion to Windows 10 and then everything looks crazy. But hopefully that's not the case. Antonia says, what are your thoughts on applying directly to an organization versus working with a recruiter? That's a great question. And I'm going to actually defer that one to Sara Basha, who's going to cover that in detail. And she has some amazing tips that I think we haven't heard. So Antonia, I'm gonna leave that one to Sara to address. Lily says, or do they prefer traditional way of displaying reading skills? Lily, do you mean in a resume of traditional way of displaying reading skills in terms of a format?
So I've seen some CVs where they use infographics to display kind of their skills, and then they use kind of bars and whatnot to say what level they're at. But for example, if someone is using this kind of CV reader, it's kind of said that it won't get picked up if you display images. So I wanted to know what's the trend now? What are companies looking for, or agencies, in terms of displaying kind of key skills? Is it visual, or is it just simply the words? I've had this discussion many times with different people, and we can't seem to arrive at one. Does anybody know?
I can give you a quick feedback of a resume that I received that had a yellow background, that had lots of infographics, and it made me dizzy. I didn't know where to look to support this person or pass on their resume for a job opportunity. So then I went back and I said, hey, can you give me one that's more clear so I can understand the timeline? Because we're all interested in the timeline and education and experience. And are the graphics taking away from that? And so when I asked for an updated version, what I got was a grayed out yellow background. You know, they changed the background to gray, and it was even harder for me to see. So, you know, I think nowadays with Canva, there's a lot of resume templates that are very creative. I think you can use that if you're going to an in-person interview, or you're displaying your resume and you're able to walk someone through your experience. But if it's a recruiter and they have to like search and go through the timeline and figure out how this graphic works, is it, you know, top down, like, or do you have little boxes that describes how to, you know, read the infographics? It's all about that. And we just know that our attention span, forget about, you know, how long recruiters take today in today's world with technology, we only have an attention span of 2.5 seconds. So what do you want to do in those 2.5 seconds?
I always say that the CV needs to have enough information on it to get people interested, but not too much for them to make a decision. So clear, concise, you know, putting your key skills at the top, you know, if it's PHP, JavaScript, you know, if it's those key development, or if it's Excel, PowerPoint, and Dynamics, Microsoft Dynamics. So you've got your executive summary, then your education and key skills at the top, then you're working back down. And I think that would help. Majuba, what do you think? Is that kind of more or less? And it'll be interesting to see what Sarah says from a recruiting side, from a business.
Yeah, for me, you know, I think whether you have those keywords individually or within sentences, a system will pick it up. It's a matter of plugging it in. I think it's, you know, having an organized CV. You can do keywords, you can do a few keywords, but I've seen people add a whole bunch of like lists. I think avoid that. Put some major points, like if you're good at coding, if you're excellent at website development, if you're good at, you know, testing, then those are some things you do want to highlight if it references back to the certifications you have. If you're an amazing project manager who has made an impact on several projects, you want to put that in your career highlights, but then also say excellent with MS Project Schedule, I know Primavera, you know, things like that, where people are actually looking at the tools that you know how to understand. So you can highlight it in that way. All right, one more question, and then we're going to move forward. Joe says, should we not use bullet points in the job experience section? You can. I absolutely do. I don't think that's a problem. And for everyone here, what I'll do is I actually have 6 days of COVID Career Challenge, 100% complimentary, where I have a CV format that I've been using over the years that can be provided to you. So I'll send that to Lillian, and that can be passed on to everyone who's attended today. Great. All right. Great questions. Let me go ahead and go forward. And we did the Q&A. And now I would love to hand this over to Sarah Basha to talk about the online aspect of being successful in this tough job market. So Sarah, you are in charge now, and I'm ready to move the slides when you tell me.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for hosting me and Majuba. And welcome, everybody, to our little chat. Of course, it's a huge topic. So since I only have like about 10 minutes, I'm going to be maybe a little bit too fast. But I hope you guys have a pen and paper and taking notes, because I hope what I say is helpful. So I'm going to talk from 2 areas before I start. Before we begin, I just want to say that, you know, these are really tough times, and I want to acknowledge that it's really difficult right now, whether you're searching for a new job or you're looking for the next big move. It's not easy. There's been a huge paradigm shift. Everything is virtual. Everything is online. And so it can be very heavy. It can make you feel like you're in a silo operating by yourself. You have no idea what the environment is because you're not interacting with people. So you're not alone. And I do want to say that I have a couple of tips emotionally to get through it before I jump into the actual online tools. And that is to stay focused, stay positive, because whether you realize it or not, your attitude, how you come across in online interactions are all going to be very important for your next move. be relentless. I mean, don't slacken up just because you feel like you're lost or you're not able to interact with people, so you don't feel where you are in the process. And remember to keep distinguishing yourself, keep up with trends, keep up with things to know where you are, and set milestones for yourself. Like, here's where I want to be in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year. And remember, these are hard times. So like, take care of your heart. Don't be too hard on yourself. Spend the time to polish things up. Use this time to kind of recalibrate and say, what can I do to make myself really stand out, instead of what can I do to win the race? Just think about yourself and how you can adjust to the job market and how it is now since COVID. And start to use the time as a glass half full approach, with that approach to say that, what connections can I reestablish online? Who can I network with, and use this time like I am trying to do to perhaps get some trainings, put those under your belt so that you look better on paper and online. With that, I guess I'm ready to jump into my next slide, Majuba. All right, so most networking and interviews are now being done online. We all know that. So attend as many of the online events as you can find. I'll tell you where to look for those. Remember to RSVP in advance. Sometimes they have caps. For instance, Zoom has a limit on how many people can be on. You don't know if a company has a limit like that to the package that they buy, so they might close off registration. Be on top of it, RSVP in advance, put it on your calendar and be there. Dress up if the interview's in person. If the networking is like maybe 10 or 20 people on a call, just dress the part, because we're very visual animals and how you come across is quite important still. Make sure your camera's on when you have the opportunity. Sometimes you have a choice, and I've noticed at work I've started to put the camera on more because I want my employer to notice me more, to understand, put a face with the voice. So make sure you have a clear space and less noise. Make sure you have eye contact. There's some situations where you have a larger screen to your right or left, and so you're looking at your screen, but everyone else is looking at your side view because you're not facing the camera. So when you're talking, it looks really odd to be talking to the side. So these are little tips that would help you to stand out. And then I have this little mantra of be positive and persistent, but never pesky. Just remember, whatever you do to engage people, just always have that really positive energy, because that does make you stand out, especially in these times. And then be persistent. Don't forget the follow-up. Don't forget to catch up with someone. Persistence and being, sort of on time with things is really important. And then don't be pesky. They'll be like, don't send a text to the person as well as an email, and don't kind of message them every day. Give it some time. And, don't make sure that you leave a good impression. So what are these little pieces that we have now with the online environment that we're in? There are places that you can go to set up interviews and to actually network online. Where can you find all the places that you want to be? Like if you've figured out your niche, like Majuba said, what do you do next? Well, you go to search engines and apps like Indeed. We have that in the US as well. I used it in the past. You go on there, you see what events are being hosted, you try to find places to be, sign yourself up. So that's one area of the online space that you need to be in, is get those apps. There's one for ZipRecruiter, there's one for Indeed, there's one for different companies. I don't know what the landscape is in England, but here we have a whole bunch that you can download an app, and it's just constantly feeding what the openings are in your area, in your industry. There's also alumni groups. We forget, I literally took my resume to my alma mater. I took it to Georgetown. I slapped it on the desk and I was like, I'm looking for a job. I went to school here. Connect me. What did I pay for? And, you say it in a polite way. And that's the way to open doors, because a lot of these alumni groups have other people that are looking for jobs. They have networks. Your schools are networks into the professional market at times, and we forget to connect with those. There's also professional groups. Do you belong to clubs and societies or organizations that are in your niche area? Connect with them, find out what the latest trends are, what's going on, and see if they have any networking events where you can meet other people online. Also, don't forget, keep a log of all the websites for companies that you're interested in getting your foot in the door or moving up in. The websites provide valuable information. They always have like a breakdown of their events that are upcoming. So always keep on track with that. And then also your personal connections. This time is a really good time to sit down and say, how well connected am I? How well networked am I? Who can I call on? Just a little personal anecdote. I moved out of the nonprofit world, where my heart was as well, when I realized I wasn't earning as much, I wasn't being treated correctly, I wasn't in a place where I felt like I really wanted to get up in the morning and go to work. And what I did was I quit that job. I took 10 months off to rebrand myself. And the way I did it was I found a friend who owned an IT company, and I decided I wanted to be a project manager and a business analyst. I went to him. I said, I'm unemployed. I'm trying to change and rebrand myself. I think I've capped out in the nonprofit world. And he lent me a friend of his who he allowed me to go and sit in a coffee shop with routinely and learn all the basic skill sets that you need for business analysis and project management, and just spruced up my resume. And I put myself out there, and lo and behold, over time, I got noticed by Grant Thornton and I got my current job. So it's possible to change industries. Make sure you maximize your connections. What's the etiquette that you follow? When you do hit people up for an interview, you have to enter the space in the right way. I've got friends who actually reach out to the CEO of the company and put them off, That's not the way to work yourself up. There's usually an HR department, a recruiter, someone you need to connect with before you move up. Find out who that is. Do your homework. Do your research. Do some digging. And then, do you reach out by making a cold call? Do you reach out by email? Is there a portal you go into? Make sure you're following that etiquette. And then, what are you seeking? Are you trying to actually just make a connection? Are you trying to find a particular person? Are you just trying to give your resume and put it into a pool? You have to be targeted, because there's lots of things you can do once you have a connection or someone you want to interview with. And then follow-up is crucial. Don't fall off the radar. It will remain in the mind of the person that connected with you that you were not interested or that you're not serious. And that's always a bad thing to leave behind. And then always leave the door open. Leave that room, even if you get negative feedback. Leave the room for them to come back to you saying, wow, that person really conducted themselves very well and professionally. For instance, in my first job interview at Grant Thornton, I interviewed for a position that was very heavily technical and IT, and it didn't fit. So the recruiter called me back and said, sorry, they didn't find a fit. And I was really down. 10 months of unemployment is really heavy on you. So I was very down. But I stayed positive. I said, well, thank you for that opportunity to interview. I would still love to be a part of the Grant Thornton family. I'm really excited. So just keep looking for me. And sure enough, the very next day, I got a call to interview on another team that was the right fit for me. So, yeah, I'm sorry I'm going really fast. So what I'm going to do now.
You have, Sada, just to tell you, you have a good 10 minutes, maybe about 8.
Not bad, but I want to leave it open for questions because I do realize people have a lot of stuff. Yeah. So just to quickly run back to what I was saying, now that I've kind of talked about the paradigm we're in, I'm going to laser focus on LinkedIn. In America, LinkedIn's kind of a big deal. It's actually the one place that opened the doors for me. And when I went to my university and said, what can you do to get me a job? They were like, well, LinkedIn's number one, and then we can work the network at school. So that's why I'm going to just, take the time out to just kind of wrap your brain around when you have a tool, how do you use it? So let's look at LinkedIn. By the way, what I'm going to present to you right now is taken from a webinar that LinkedIn offered for free like 2 years ago. So it's still very relevant. So I just thought I'd share the tips with you. So let's start. Hopefully every one of you has a LinkedIn page. And if you do, you can always spruce it up. But if you don't, here are the steps to set a really good one up. And it works magic. It worked magic for me. So that's why I'm sharing it with you guys. So the very first thing is when you land on a LinkedIn page, there's a summary. It's basically this blank space that allows you to write whatever you want. And it's usually supposed to be your power statement. It's supposed to be the attention grabber, the thing that makes people go, wow, this person's amazing. Or this person sounds like they're right where, the hole is in our organization. So it's usually just a paragraph that allows recruiters to kind of go, why should I hire this person? So make sure that it comes across very powerful and to the point. And it's like a selling point for you. And it should have your core competencies listed in there in a paragraph form. You should also have your 2 to 3 best accomplishments. And by that, I don't mean 2 to 3 traits necessarily, but actual accomplishments. Like, you like Majuba mentioned the $3 million project she worked on, that would be great to put up there. Put it in generic terms, like helped an account worth $3 million, word it that way. And then always put your email and contact information up there. Because if you're serious about getting a job, you need to be reachable. I know it's kind of creepy to put your stuff out there sometimes, but when you're searching for a job, you have to be able to let people contact you. So phone number, if you want, an email. The second thing you want to pay attention to is that title that appears right underneath your picture. A lot of people put their certifications or their job title or, things that the industry they work in. So whatever you choose to do, make sure it's very clear and very representative of how you want to come across. And it's very professional. I mean, make sure if it's a certification that you write it the correct way so you don't look like you really don't know what you're talking about. So make sure the URL to access your LinkedIn is also relevant and easy to find. Like mine, for instance, would be Sarah Basha. Some people have things like, S53398, like all these jumbled up letters, and it'll spit that out for you originally when you set up your LinkedIn, but you can customize it, by the way. You can go in there and change your URL name. The third thing is your past experiences or the jobs that you've had should be written as impact-based. So instead of doing multiple bullets, what you can do is write a couple of lines or a little paragraph that describes exactly what you did on the job. But when you write it, instead of writing as a description of what I did, you should write it as, this is the impact I had. So that's really much more important than people knowing exactly what did you do, because your job title kind of describes what you did, but they want to see what you're capable of doing. So they're going to look at where the impact was. What was your impact at the job? The fourth thing is really pack down your skills and your endorsements. So sit down maybe one day and look at, what are the soft skills I have? What are the technical skills I have? What is, order them in terms of importance or your strengths, and kind of have a mental map of where you stand in terms of your skills. And if you see holes in it, then like I said, COVID is the best time to go out there. If you have some extra cash, get the trainings that you need, because that will make you stand out. Next slide, please. Thank you. All right, so the next thing is we talked about formatting. I have to tell you that when I was on this LinkedIn seminar, they did say that most search engines and apps do have an algorithm in the back end. And what they do is they feed your resume or your profile into the algorithm. So a computer is actually picking up on keywords. And then for LinkedIn especially, and I'm guessing it's for a lot of the other main search engines, they do rely on the doc format. So it's basically Word format. And that's probably the easiest for them to feed in. It's the most universal. So if a recruiter is looking at a resume, it's most likely that they're looking at something that's more universal. So the .doc format is probably best. So when you write in your description on LinkedIn, your resume, you want to be able to stay away from formatting. So fancy lines, fancy bullets, keep them all out. Keep it very simple. It actually looks quite boring when you look at it on LinkedIn, but you can spruce up your your hard copy one if you want. But for LinkedIn's purposes, you stick to the MS Word. You try to use simple fonts, the sans serif fonts that are simple, that don't have the fancy things to them, because it feeds in better. And then instead of doing fancy lines in your summary or your resume, you want to just use white space, because it's hard on the eyes when you have breaks and lines. It's much easier when it's just a white space and then the next thing starts after that. And then try to avoid using any graphics or lines when you're in LinkedIn putting in your resume. The next thing is to make yourself visible to hiring managers. So there's an option in the back end in the settings where you can get recruiters to be able to see you. And I think that's fairly simple. I'm pretty sure most of you have that on, but don't forget to keep it on and make yourself look, very out there. I guess the next one is kind of important. So people, as you know, we're going mostly online with everything. Even if you have a recruiter, they will probably take your resume and feed it through the company algorithms when they finally do. But it's better to have a recruiter just because, you can add some subjectivity to it and you have someone to contact. However, the importance of LinkedIn is that there is a direct correlation between the size of your network and the amount of time it takes for you to find that job that you want, whether it's, like I said, the next job in line for you or an actual job if you're unemployed and looking. So they have a little math equation that they do in the back end at LinkedIn. It's basically you find your average daily profile views by taking the number of profile views you have and dividing it by 90. And that tells you how many you're getting every day. And then supposedly it takes 300 good views. You know how you get on LinkedIn, you're like, oh, I got 5 views today or 5 views this whole week. It takes about 300 good views to expect a good job offer. And when they say good job offer, it's the one that's legitimate, is a good fit for you. So you might get at least 5 or 6 job offers, but maybe one of those is something that's legitimately suitable to you. And then there's a calculation that if you get 1 profile view a day, that's about 7 a week. And then if 300 good views get you a job, then what you do is you take that 300 and divide it by the 7, and then you get 43. That means it takes about 43 weeks for you to get a good job offer that would be legitimate. So that's the algorithm they use. But what I'm trying to highlight here is don't get into a, tizzy over the numbers. The point is that sprucing up your online presence is really important, and there is a method to their madness.
Sarah, we do have 2 questions and about a minute left. So I was hoping that you can address those before we get into the next part, if we have time. Zoe says, how important are endorsements from colleagues, customers, and managers? So if you want to address that quickly.
So to be honest with you, I don't put a lot of weight on endorsements because people can always ping their friends and tell them to put stuff on there. So I don't really look at them. I'm not sure how recruiters look at them. I think the substance of your online presence is more important than endorsements, to put it in a nutshell. Yeah.
So, and then thank you for that. And then Annie says, if the role is through an agency and all contact is through the agency, do you advise to still follow up with the interviewer direct after the interview?
Once you've established a connection with the interviewer, you have every right to be directly in touch with them. You're already at the next level. And I would actually encourage you to just stay in touch with the interviewer because that's been established. Now, if they are not interested and push you back to the agency level, then you know that there's something up there. But yes, by all means, you have to be pesky and persistent. That's the way to do it. You've got that connection. The door's been opened. You stick with it and you just run with the ball on that one. I would advise you to stick with the interviewer once you're in touch because that's basically a connection now that you don't want to lose.
Antonia had earlier said, what are your thoughts on applying directly to an organization versus working with a recruiter?
You should always have a combination. Some companies are small and they're looking for people like you, so you may have to be directly in touch with maybe even the CEO. You never know. And then other times, like with Grant Thornton, what my experience was, you had to work through a recruiter. I mean, you can enter through a connection, but they have to put you through a portal, and then a recruiter will call you anyway. So always, widen your net or cast the net wide with recruiters / in person, everything that you can possibly do. Just make sure you follow the etiquette.
One last question from Annie. She says, by substance of online presence, do you mean the content you're posting and creating on LinkedIn?
Yeah, that's another thing that I didn't touch on is the likes and the comments that you make are kind of like the Facebook of LinkedIn in a way. They're going to reveal where your interests are, what your professional interests are. So yeah, I mean, by all means, write things if you want to put yourself out there as a thought leader, if you want to be commenting on your industry standards or the trends in your industry. Go out there and do that. But just remember to follow the etiquette and always think, if I'm a person on the outside reading this, how would I feel about this person? The question was, should you connect with the hiring manager on LinkedIn, or is that crossing a line? Absolutely not. If the hiring manager is available online, they're putting themselves out there and you absolutely can reach out to them. I get a lot of questions about, I'm really nervous about making a cold call. Should I be doing that? As I said, cast the net wide. Do make cold calls if you have to as well. That's the way to establish connections. So definitely call to find out what the pecking order is. That's how I would initiate the call, is to find out who you need to be in touch with. And then get to the point really fast, because you don't want to waste time, because they have a lot of people to go through, and you need to be able to pack down your little elevator pitch of 15 seconds to make yourself stand out. So pack that down, talk about what it is you're interested in without wasting too much time. And then maintain a conversation. Like I said, just make sure you're not pesky, but always leave that door open to have a back and forth. It's like a skill in a way. Make sure the door's always open. You can always reach out to the person. And then it's conversational. So it's a back and forth, and it's not just you dumping a bunch of information on this person. And then always make sure your resume is suitable. You don't know how many times people do a generic resume and send it to a place with no thought as to what that opening is asking for. You have to customize your resume for the job that you're reaching out for. And it takes time. It's very tedious. Looking for a job or the next job is a job in itself. So yeah, customize it. Don't just send something out and say, I already worked on this. Yeah, it is what it is. I'm just going to send it. You're missing an opportunity. Look for the keywords and customize it.
Awesome. So Sara, I have a lot of questions for you. All right, let me see where we are. Give me 1 minute, guys, and I'm going to get to all of your questions. There's Q&A chat. Okay, I wanted to make sure that all points did come across and you all received the value you needed. That's our goal here at the Rising Network. So Sara, get ready. Here's a question from Joe. What would a proper introduction message on LinkedIn be on LinkedIn to a hiring manager look like? I'm a little nervous of coming across as desperate. Any guidance there for Joe?
So LinkedIn really started this thing recently where they have templates that you can send out, like pre-written little paragraphs. So you can engage a recruiter using something like that. But I would literally sit down, take the time to write a little introductory paragraph that I could use routinely. And yes, you absolutely can reach out to recruiters with a very standard message just to test the waters and make sure that, like I said, you're not just sending an outward push communication, but you're actually soliciting a pull communication by leaving a question there or something to engage the recruiter to make them respond to you. So yeah.
And what I would add to that, to what Sara just said, Joe, is if you know the position is for something that you're amazing at, just say, hey, would you like to have someone on your team that understands how to do A, B, and C? Because I have 10 years of experience, and I just saw job posting 2485 that's actually specifically asking for the education experience that I have. Do you have a minute for us to have a conversation? And you can even give your availability. So it can be that quick. And they're like, oh, okay, I want to talk to Joe. So you can do that. Yep.
Good.
And do we want to go on with the questions? It's up to you guys. I'm good. I see Emma has one. Yeah, please.
Yeah. Is there a way to identify type best recruitment agency, the headhunter, alongside all the searches? Well, you can never know who the best recruiter is, but the companies usually have a recruiter for the specific department that you're looking for. So make sure you reach out to the right one. I mean, you don't want to be reaching out to the change management recruiter if you're really looking for a web development, and that's why it's important to do your research. It could mean the difference between missing an opportunity and bagging it is reaching out to the right person. So absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. And there was another one I want to, Bethan says, what are your top tips for impressing in an interview?
You know what? I always say be authentic. One of my hirers, the person that hired me, actually said he looks for 3 things. One is intelligence. And he says, I know you already have that when you walk in the door because I already saw your resume and I picked you out because you're smart. So that's one thing. The other thing he looks at is whether or not you're a team player. So your personality, your ability to get along with people. We are increasingly working in teams, in the workforce. And so your ability to work well in a team is really important. So please, kind of put that forth if you go in for an interview. And the final thing he said was determination. What he meant by that is when you're faced with a problem, when there's a skill that you don't have or don't know about, are you going to back out? Are you going to break down? Are you going to run away? Or are you going to say, hey, I'm determined to get this right. I'll go out and do what it takes to make this happen. So the can-do attitude. So always walk in there very, my thing is make yourself look very professional. For us ladies, dress in a way where you're not bringing attention to your outfit as much as to who you are as a whole person. Do yourself justice. Be yourself. Be comfortable. Don't wear those really painful shoes that day. Come across as authentic because people really want to be able to trust.
One way to get your nerves down is the power pose. So everybody look that up. We don't have time today for me to go into it, but the power pose works. Last but not least, going backwards, we don't want to do that. I want to thank everyone. Sara and I are so grateful for this opportunity and to have been part of this amazing masterclass. Thank you. And Sara, any last words from your end?
No, I just want to say thank you for having me on. And if you guys want to send Majuba questions by email or whenever or however indirectly to me, I'm more than happy to answer them if I can. Thanks.
Awesome. I'll go ahead and hand this over now to Rosa. Rosa, please. Sorry for the delay, but it's all yours now. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much. That was really, really helpful. And thank you so much to everybody for staying online with us. If you are still okay to stay with us, I don't know if you can see my current slide. I'm just going to share my current slide. There were some really useful takeaways, and it looks like the audience were able to really get a lot out of today. So I'm going to be sharing the last screen. Please, for those that are on Facebook, please join us on Facebook. You'll be able to connect with Majuba and Sara and perhaps ask any other questions and, to be able to get a little bit more support, because it can be quite a daunting process, but hopefully you feel a little bit more empowered. Now, the beauty about the Rising Network, one of the key things that we spoke about was the fact that you've got access to lots of events. So have a look at some of these events that we've got coming up. We've got a 4-week course, online course coming up with Communicating with Confidence, and that'll kick off next week, and it'll be 1 session a week. The following one after that is all about getting organized. There's a monthly challenge, and this month it's all about getting organized and getting the most of yourself. So please pop online and come and join us on that. On the 18th of November, we have the Human Resources HR for Beginners and Non-HR Managers. So if that's something that's really of interest to you, please sign up for that. On the 1st of December, we are having a project risk management in volatile times, and that's with Majuba again on the 1st of December, and that's an online masterclass. So you can please join us for that masterclass, or you could do both. In January, can you believe we're talking about 2021 already? An online masterclass for driving your career forward with Nayli. and that'll kick off on the 12th of January. And then at the moment, we have another event, a 3-week online course for redefining your success and what's your long win, about building and identifying that. So please join us for that. These get updated all the time. Go to therisingnetwork.com. You can have a look at that. I spoke about the Rising Network Facebook group. We have an online community there, and Monday to Friday they are Motivational Monday, Tip Tuesday, Wellness Wednesday, Show and Tell Thursday, and then Fun Friday. And it's all about professional women from all walks of life, really, and all around the world, sharing some tips and advice. And you can see there, we've got October's featured members for the month. So please join us on there. Find us on therisingnetwork.com. Lastly, pleased to thank Majuba and Sarah for joining us today and for sharing their great advice. And it's been an absolute pleasure to meet you all online on this platform. And we look forward to welcoming you on the next one. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rosa. Thank you, everyone.